Hello and welcome to the channel for those who want to excel at exams, work and languages. Today we're going to talk about languages and particularly about that frustrating situation in which you want to tackle a language that you have already learned in the past. So if you are in that situation, keep watching because you're going to understand why you keep putting it off. So what is the problem why most people that want to relearn a language that they studied in the past keep postponing it? And it's absurd because at times you're really not that far away from speaking it fluently, but it seems easier to start a new language rather than go back to the one that you studied in the past. There's a reason for this. And the reason is that usually we use the wrong method to tackle the language that we already studied in the past. Why? Because traditionally, what do people do? One of these two things. Number one, they take a list of words, vocab, grammar rules, and they go over everything. The problem is that most of these words, they already know. Most of the grammar rules, they already know. So this becomes extremely boring. And when something is boring, what do? You're not motivated. You will stop doing it. The second way that people have to start improving a language that they already knew is by throwing themselves in the language, watching movies, reading books. The problem is that in most cases, movies are still too hard to understand. Books, there's too many words that you don't know yet. And so it becomes too challenging. And at that point, what happens? Guess what? Again, motivation goes down and you stop doing it. All of this happens because we haven't learned how to balance our SSE. What is the SSE? Italian. What is the SSE? The SSE is the sense of self-efficacy. I call it SSE so that I don't trip on the word. Sense of self-efficacy. SSE. What is the SSE? It's your perception of the ability that you have to perform that task. Why do we need to balance it? Because think about this. When the SSE is too low, you look at that task, you don't feel able to do it, and so the task seems too difficult for you. And rather than failing at something that's too difficult for you, what you will do is to sabotage yourself and not even start. The other situation, though, that is very risky, but at times we don't pay attention to, is when the SSE is too high. SSE too high is a problem. Why? Because when it is too high, you feel you're extremely able to take care of that task, too able. So when you look at that thing, you're like, yeah, but I know it. I already know what to do, how to do, and so on. And so you keep postponing because it's too boring. If you want to keep your motivation high, and this applies to everything, but now specifically we're talking about learning languages. They already studied in the past, so something where we need to pay attention to this. You need to find a balance of your SSE. So you can't just go and start over from zero because your SSE will be too high and you will get bored. On the other hand, you can't just throw yourself into the language because it may be still too hard for you to understand, and so your SSE will be too low and you will stop and you will give up. So we need to find the balance. How? My strategy is this. First step, take a test in that language to understand at what level you currently are. There are so many tests that you can take online where you can just have questions related to all the abilities of a language so that you can understand, because if you are an A1, A2, C1, B2, there is a difference and there will be a different way to approach it. So first of all, understand what is your current level, not the one that you had 3 years ago, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, but the one that you have now. Second, aim at +1. So if your current level is A2, aim at B1. If your current level is B1, aim at B2, and so on. And step 3, after understanding what level you want to achieve, go online and find resources related to that level. So you will be able to find specific vocabulary lists, that you can apply for that specific level. You will be able to find grammar rules that are required for that level. You will have exercises in terms of speaking, reading, writing, listening that you can take in order to practice on the level that you need to practice on. Because if you're B1, so if we want to count the level, it could be considered the third or the fourth. It depends if you count A0 as well. So if you're B1 and you practice on A1 things, so much easier things, you will get bored. But if you're B1 and you practice on C2 material, it will be too hard. So we need to balance our SSC. If you're B1, aim at B2, understand what is the vocabulary required to pass B2, the grammar rules required, the exercise in terms of speaking, reading, writing, listening, so that you can actually work on something that balances your SSC. Then, of course, if you want to do a great job, understand what your learning styles are, and not just in terms of visual, auditory, kinesthetic, but in terms of all those styles that affect your way of learning and processing information. Because when we're talking about languages, that has a huge impact in the way you should not just memorize words, but understand grammar rules, practice the language. It's incredible how much difference it can make to have a different approach to a language by understanding how you work. So if you're interested in understanding how your learning styles are, so what they are, how your brain prefers to learn things, then get in touch with us so that we can help you understand what your characteristics are and how you are supposed to learn effectively in order to tackle this language that is just a little bit away from you. Almost there.